Starting take two in 3, 2, 1, go! So guess what, Ronnie?
What?
I got my first job on Fiverr.
See, I knew they couldn't resist that voice. There was no way.
And it's really creating the foundation in order to become popular, because there are jobs on there that have over 1,000 thumbs ups and hundreds of reviews. But they had a foundation and then it grew. It's a snowball effect. People are going to search for ads that have reputation backing them. So that's important to get the foundation. I'm going to talk more about this. We've went over Fiverr.com before on the show. We'll talk a bit more about it on this show. Yet again, we're here. Ronnie and I, welcome. We're here yet again here on Take Two. Welcome to the program, everybody. It is great to be here as we continue the countdown to the 300th episode show. And we're edging ever so closer. And this episode, well, we're going to rip another sheet of paper off of that countdown calendar. Ronnie's going to make it official in just a hot moment. But thank you all for taking the time to join Ronnie and I. But before we get into all of the good stuff, so many great things we're going to be talking about. If those of you tuned in right now would be so kind, as the great listeners, please visit www.theonthenet.com. That's right, the Voices on the Net Network's website, where you, the listeners, will be able to find more information regarding the Voices on the Net network. Yeah, if you're new to the network, I highly recommend you check out the About page, because rather than Ronnie and or I explaining to you what the network's all about, the page will give you everything you need to know pertaining to the network in thorough detail. A great guide for those of you that are new to the network. Regularly updating it, too. You can also check out podcasts of any of the episodes from any of the shows, and they're all available on demand for and at your very own convenience. They're all there for you. You could also check out articles, plenty of content, folks. Highly recommend checking it out at www.theonthenet.com. All right, Ronnie, guess what? We have to rip yet another sheet of paper off of that countdown calendar as we edge closer to that next major milestone. Can you believe it? 300 episodes. It's pretty crazy, pretty amazing, pretty astonishing, and I'm glad to say that we're approaching that episode. We got to get through this episode first, though, and you're going to announce it for us, so check into that envelope of yours over there, that envelope, and pull out that sheet. What episode have we arrived at, Ronnie?
We have arrived at episode 293.
There you go. 293. Wow. 293. 7 away from the next major milestone. 7. It's, oh, wow. And, over the last 3 episodes, we started the countdown on episode 290, and we're going to say we're probably going to say it was different come the 300th episode. Where it says, oh, this flew. But the last few episodes have kind of been going a bit slower. It hasn't been flying, it seems. But perhaps once we get to the 300th episode, it's going to be different.
Back on it.
What?
We start up at that roller coaster, every time we get ready to go off and we start that 100 count again.
Yeah, but you notice that when you conclude a countdown, or you conclude, say, a vacation, you say, "Oh man, that vacation flew." But when you're on vacation, during the vacation, or you're going through the countdown, you'll notice that it kind of drags rather than goes quickly. And now it may go quickly sometimes. You may feel like it is. It depends whether you're busy or not. And not that we're not busy. We are. But it's just certain times may feel like it's going slower than others. But come the 300th episode, I wouldn't doubt it's any different. I wouldn't doubt it's any different. Yep. We'll say, oh, this flew, wow. We'll come back to this 293rd episode and relive
the moment.
So now it's flying, but back on the 293rd episode, it was kind of slow. All right,
yeah.
Fine. But yes, we are here for the 293rd episode of Take Two. Great to have you all join us. We've got such an awesome show for you. You want to stay tuned. As a matter of fact, let everybody know, your neighbors, your followers on Twitter, your friends on Facebook. Go over to MySpace, too. And let your friends know. I mean, Google Plus, if you're one of the lucky people to be a part of their beta. Let them know that we're doing a show because we have a great one planned for you. But yeah, Fiverr.com. We've talked about that on this show before. And I got my first job, Ronnie. I did.
I am so proud of you.
You know, and it took a few days. I had the ads up for a few days. Wasn't getting any bites. There were people checking the ad out, but you know, you have to develop that foundation first. That's important. I knew that going into it. So all right, this is going to be tedious a bit. It's going to be a bit tedious because, well, you need the foundation. You need people to see, well, is this voiceover artist reputable? Have people tried him out before? Well, people have to start somewhere, right? You would hope. And that's what happened with this individual. I got my first job. The very first copy I created, he enjoyed. He loved it. And it was an intro to a sports show. And I'm glad to say that my first order is completed, which is nice.
Yes.
Very cool. Great service.
See, I knew that there was no way they could resist that voice.
And
You're so talented in that. I've listened to a lot of your voiceovers, and it's like, wow.
And I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed doing them all, but I really enjoyed doing it. It was fun. For instance, there were highlights. There were highlights included in the voicer, sports highlights, and I enjoyed looking on the internet, scouring the net for those highlights. I did. I really did enjoy it. Because I was trying to find the best ones that suited the sound, the background sound, the background music, and of course catered to my voice, and it really fit quite well. I'm trying to get the intro up here for those of you so you can hear it. Seeing that I finished my first job on Fiverr, here it is, right here. This is the intro, and it's for a sports show, as I stated before. So let's play it. Here it is.
Live from the nation's capital, it's the Brian Ain't Lying Show. Look out! Oh, Porter doing the right thing. Great decision. With your hosts, Brian and Andre. James, and this is for the tag. Go! Indulging your craving for uncensored, controversial, and unpredictable madness. Here's the pole. Lay on. Oh! Turn your speakers up and get ready for 2 hours of Brian and Andre. And now, your hosts,
Ronnie and JJ. Oh, there you have it. That's the intro that I worked on for the customer, and he enjoyed it quite a bit. He loved it. He loved the dramatic intro going into a much faster speed and so forth, a much faster background sound as I added there. Change of pace, in other words, so he and his buddy can talk over the music, and that's something that a lot of hosts like to do. They like to talk over music, and then they just simply fade out, as you know we do on our show. I love doing that. Some people like a hard end. Some people like kind of a transition into music. So it was fun. It was really fun.
You could tell that in your voice, but I love your voiceover, so I knew there was no way that this guy was going to say, I needed this change and this change. No, because you go through and you research, you know exactly what you want in your head, and you make sure it, follows through with that. You give the best of your best.
What I do is, and listen, I love doing it, but I follow a certain structure when I'm creating my voiceovers, and of course I have my own custom compression and my own custom effects. Everything is custom myself, just because everything is going to cater to the individual's voice. It's just the way it is. rather than using just the cookie cutter effects and compression methods, and whether you're using hard limiting or compression or the dynamic processing. I use Adobe Audition. I want to customize it all to make it sound great, and it's very interesting, and I've always wanted to do it. I've always wanted to construct a video on how I construct a voiceover, because it'll start one way, and then I'll notice I could tweak this part, I can tweak that part, I could tweak this part and make it a bit better, and I can maybe cut this a little bit, and then from the beginning to the end, it's amazing how it transitions. Similar to watching, say, a graphic on YouTube, as somebody's, maybe a graphics artist, a graphics designer, a logo designer, and they're creating a logo. You notice how it starts and then where it finishes. Similar to that, and it's always a blast to do it. And I'm always hesitant, though. I'll tell you, I short serve myself a lot. I do. I never know if somebody's going to enjoy it. And the other factor I want to add to this is, when I'm doing it, I listen to it a lot, because I'm always replaying it over and over and over again. So when I listen to it the following morning, I got a different feeling from it, because I had taken a break from listening to it a million times. So, yeah. But I'm happy that he enjoyed it, and I can't wait for future orders, as that definitely helps. You need to get that foundation going, just like anything else. People want reputation. They do. They want to see a good reputation, because if you go to somebody's ad and you see nothing there, you're going to wonder, what is the reason maybe why people are staying away from this person? Do they know something? However, I've posted my demos and so forth, so hopefully that speaks louder than reviews even. But good thing that I at least got the first one down. So hopefully
I'm waiting to see his review. It'll be all stars.
Hopefully we'll see what happens. But wanted to get that out. I was happy. I was ecstatic to be able to say, yes, I finally did it. My first order on Fiverr, and I'm glad. So if you haven't checked it out, though, go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. Great service where you can purchase items, services for $5, or sell services, products for $5. Make some quick money there in a short amount of time. All right, so I want to go into this before heading into the associations, Ronnie. Quite interesting, actually. It seems that we've been going into quite a few of these, or we've been getting into quite a few of these discussions on men versus women, males versus females. It's like, what's going on here? Are we really that different? As opposed to just comparing our, physical traits. Although some males may look are comparable to their opposite sex as opposed to some others, but that's to each their own, and to be, what are you going to do? But yeah, this is an interesting study here that shows men apparently can pinpoint where a sound originates in a noisy environment over their female counterpart. Now, this is interesting because we bring up selective hearing. We talk about that. Now, there are some bright and dark spots to this, clearly. But it also is more interesting because why can a male maybe pinpoint a sound, the localization of a sound I'm talking about, over a female? Maybe they can pinpoint exactly where it is. In a noisy environment, we for instance, listen to what we want to listen to. If it's, for instance, you're at a noisy terminal and there's everybody talking on their cell phones, you got the person on the loudspeaker telling this one where to go, this group where to go, that one where to go, and so forth. You have the kids yelling. How are you going to concentrate? Yet you're waiting for your number to be called for I guess your train or your bus or wherever whatever you're going to be getting on. You're focusing on that. So you're tuning everything else out. Your mind is focused on that localization. Now, there's further studies pinpointing the fact that men can do it better than women. I have to hear what you have to say here because I know you're not going to go down without a fight, Ronnie.
No, bogus. How come we can get it via the same vehicle with the guy? We hear a noise and they ask us to describe it to them and they can't hear it. I don't hear anything. So bogus because come on. And women, we know what someone is talking about clear across the room. Mostly because we can also read lips. But no, bogus. I've been in cars with guys that'll sit there and state, I didn't hear anything. I don't hear anything. Describe it to me. I still don't hear it. And you can be sitting right there to his face if there's of course, if there's a sports show on, completely oblivious to what you're saying. So completely tuned out. So no, I don't think this story is correct.
No?
No, selective hearing, and they can't hear a noise in the car that you can clearly hear. And then, of course, 2 days later, something falls off your car.
All right. Well, it's actually interesting because I've looked up a couple of other articles that had to do with this. You know, the differences in male and female behavior. And they're often subject to conducive studies. I'll tell you. I always enjoy reading studies that have to do with males and females because you get to find out within the study, whether you believe it or not is up to you. You get to find out within the study how different we really are. And it doesn't only have to do with our physical attributes, characteristics. Now, in this article here, it states women are, and I could tell you this without even reading it, that women are more verbally fluent, they state in the study, have better manual dexterity, and are better at noticing things, say a new haircut, just noticing things in life. Men in this study state, it states in here, they often take less time parking their cars, have less trouble than women in navigating in a new city, etc., etc. But talking about pinpointing the localization of sound, they state that men can grasp it more than women. They can focus on it more than women. And it really is interesting because neurologists, I mean, they brought in some prominent neurologists to conduct these studies just to find out, based on those that were involved in the study, who happened to pinpoint sound more. And you know, as based on there are only a certain amount of people in a study, obviously. So they base it off of the amount of people in that study, and that's what they found out. That within that group of people, the men happened to pinpoint the sound better than the women. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to pinpoint a sound better than you. You can still pinpoint a sound better than me. It's just in this study, the majority went the male side.
Well, maybe it's different, in Germany compared to the United States.
That's where the study originated, yes.
So maybe, because here in the United States, I think the guys are more in tune of what, they're used to the sounds that are going on around them, and they don't, even, especially if you have a girlfriend and they're talking to you, and the guy's like, yeah, whatever you say. And then there's a test afterwards. They don't even remember what you were talking about. They have no idea. They're just saying it just to get you to go by. Go away. I'm watching a sports show. I'm in tune to something else.
Yeah.
So no.
Well,
selective hearing at its best.
Right. I understand that. But when we're talking about sound localization and spatial reasoning and so forth through psychology and psychological measures and so forth, why is it that you necessarily feel that this study may be a bit off in terms of males being able to pinpoint sound localize? Maybe the localization of sound. Is it really out of the ordinary that there are certain characteristics that happen to cater to one specific sex than the other? I mean, I
think it depends on what the tonage is of the sound, what it pertains to. Because guys, they can hear, what a tool sound like from a long distance away. I know what they're doing. But a female, we can identify what is going on in someplace else. But I don't know why it is. But we just have that sense that we know what we hear. We know what directions it come from, and we can almost pinpoint as to what's going on in that scenario of the sound that we've heard. Yeah,
but the reason I bring that up is males with testosterone, women with estrogen, it's not out of the ordinary to believe something like this because Males, for instance, are clearly going to be able to lift heavier weights than females. You're not going to dispute that fact, are you? Because we have testosterone. You don't. That's how it is. That plays a major role in how much we can lift, how angry we get, and when that kicks in, you're 3-4 times your physical strength and so forth. You feel more powerful. Females don't have that. So is it really that? Is it really less imminent in your opinion, or more imminent in your opinion, that this might be true because of that factor? Because it's not out of the ordinary that we have certain characteristics you don't have, and you have certain characteristics we don't have. So why the sudden dismissal of this study? Nah, it's bogus. Forget it. I'm not going by it. No. Sorry.
Yeah, because I've been around. I grew up with brothers. Okay, and presently, on the one I have right now, his wife can hear exactly where the kids are. My brother be like,
but know what I said though, Ronnie? But no, I said you might be able to hear better than I. Your brother might be able to hear better than you. That's fine. I'm not saying that I'm not saying every male is going to necessarily be able to hear better than a female. Say a male has hearing damage. That's the way it is. It's just the average, the norm. Without any hearing damage pertaining to the study, it happens to be males are the dominant factor in that. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that everyone's going to be that way. That's why studies are conducted.
I just want to see the actual elements of this study. Because until then, as far as the group of men that they supposedly took care of, because they don't even tell you that information. They tell you nothing. As to what were the ages of the guys? Were they younger? Because, as you get older past that, 40 mark? You're losing your hearing and all the thing that goes along. But I think they should have went deeper in depth with this particular study, because there are certain tonages that men cannot hear that women can. So I kind of wonder, what type of tonage did you use? How old were the males in this study? They don't do any of that. And then, where's the women in this study?
I just want to combat what you just said. There are certain tonages that females can hear that males can hear. First off, it's males and females. Certain tonages that both of them can or cannot hear.
Sure.
It's just the way it is.
Men.
Right. There are certain things that are just at a high enough, a screeching distance, a high enough distance, we can't hear what's going on. It's as if the sound's really not there, but it is going on. It is playing whatever sound it is. It just so happens to be that, as per the study, men can pinpoint, say, the sound of whatever sound is being played in terms of sound localization better than females. Now, Ida Zundorf of the Center of Neurology at Tübingen University in Germany, and colleagues Hans Otto Karnath and Dr. Jörg Lewald investigated the audiospatial abilities in healthy men and women. Note, they stayed healthy, and that's what I mentioned before, by means of a sound localization task. Now, participants were asked to listen to sounds and determine the location of the sound source, either by pointing toward it or by naming the exact positions, such as 45 degrees left, 50 degrees right, etc., etc. At first, sounds were presented each one at a time, and both men and women accomplished the task with great ease, but later several sounds were presented simultaneously, and participants had to focus on and localize only one sound, and this is known as the cocktail party phenomenon. In other words, the human capacity to detect and focus on one particular sound, in other words, in a noisy environment, a la a terminal, maybe a bus terminal, a train area, somewhere where there are a lot of people, and you're focusing on your specific sound while the next person's focusing on their sound. They don't care about your sound. You don't care about theirs. That's how it is. You're perceiving, or you're focusing on your sound. That's the case.
They were told what to listen for.
Right, exactly. And being that they were told what to listen to, now they base it on the amount of males versus females in the study, which one can say hear better than the other, pinpoint the localization of the sound better than the other. Now bring in another group of people and see where that leads. It's going to be interesting to find out. I'll tell you, I've been following most of the studies we've been talking about. I'm going to follow this one because it's interesting to read this. It's new. It just came out July 2nd, 2011. Yeah. So it's developing. So we'll see where it goes from here. Definitely interesting, though, to find out that these scientists or these neurologists have found men can pinpoint the localization of sound better than females, which Ronnie obviously does not agree with, which is going to be interesting.
The fireworks. Let's see if they can still hear.
Yeah, these are healthy people, again, I repeat. But yes, if you're damaged hearing, well, that doesn't necessarily count because it's compromised. But yeah. All right, we're going to get into the associations part of the show. That is right, episode number 293 of the show. We're going to associate certain things with this episode number, as we do. If you're new to the show, you're new to the network, that's what we do. Each episode, we associate just random things with every episode number. But before we get into that portion of the show, Ronnie and I would be gracefully appreciative if you would check out our sponsor, Audible.com. That is right. We thank Audible for their generous support of the Take-Two program, as well as the Voices on the Net network, with over 85,000 titles to choose from. Over 85,000 and counting. Always adding great audiobooks to their service. Really, the premier service on the web. You check them out. We'll give you a great offer here. No risk involved. You don't have to spend a dime. Nope. One free audiobook and a 14-day, a 2-week free trial to browse the 85,000 plus audiobooks that Audible has to offer. All you need to do in order to take advantage of this brilliant offer is go to audibletrial.com/take2. That's right, audibletrial.com/take2 to take advantage of your audiobook and your free audiobook and your 14-day free trial. Don't wait any longer. Don't wait any longer because I'll tell you, Ronnie and I are both subscribers. We enjoyed immensely, and we're that confident that you'll enjoy the 14-day free trial that you won't want to cancel the subscription. You'll want to pay for it, and know when you pay for it, you support the Voices on the Net network. We appreciate it immensely. And for pricing information and everything, go to audibletrial.com/take2. As always, we thank Audible for their support of the Take-Two program, as well as the Voices on the Net network. All right, so association time. You want to start us off with one over there? I know you've got a couple for us.
Oh, yes. DD form 293 is actually a military discharge form. You could go under an honorable discharge, a general, which is an under honorable conditions, or under less than honorable conditions, bad conduct, or if the general decides to do so, uncategorized, which is a dishonorable discharge.
All right, explain this a bit more, Ronnie. You got to explain it.
Honorable discharge means you've actually completed all your training. You're not being forced out of the military. Sometimes it can be done conclusively under a medical discharge. Let's say you've done 2 tours in Iraq, you've come back, and you're no longer qualified to continue on with your service. That's going to be a medical discharge, equivalent to a honorable discharge. So every 4 years, someone who is active duty in the military, which is every 4 years, you're up for reenlistment. Okay. And usually the military has to discharge you before you can reenlist in the military, and this form is used under that circumstance.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, because when we talk about medical discharge and so forth, people that are sent home because they've been injured in war, you obviously that's kind of common knowledge. If you're injured, how are you going to fight? How are you going to fight for your country? While they may like to, they can't. If they have a bruised knee or a bruised leg or a bruised arm, or they've suffered internal injuries. But when it comes to honorable discharge, that's an honor in itself, obviously.
You've served your time in grade.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've reached that pinnacle. I guess your commanding officer, would it be their superior officer?
It's a signed off chain of command.
Gotcha. That's what the military is all about. Big with the chain of command.
Yeah.
Ronnie has served in the military. I haven't, so I'm learning as I go along.
I do my best to avoid those that have a shiny collar.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would rather get a a star for being honorable or honored than a star for dying. Whether you die for your country, you've already decided. Listen, I'm going to take that risk, but you would rather the latter, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I would think.
Yeah. If you served your country well and so forth, I have a couple of Bronze Stars.
Okay.
So
nice.
That's a plus. But this, after you've completed this, and it takes usually about a year if they don't lose your paperwork.
Right.
To discharge you from the military because it's a long red tape process.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Well, thank you for that association. I've got one for you, and this one is quite interesting. And I'm going to do a mathematical equation after the show. I believe it because I did take a look at the equation that they used to figure out the answer to this. But I'm going to do it myself just to test it. Larry King had stated in his USA Today column that there are 293 ways to make change for $1. Yeah, 293 ways to make change for $1. It's very interesting because clearly you could make $1 by utilizing pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, and of course, the dollar itself. Very interesting to place each one in its own category. For instance, 95 pennies, 1 nickel. 90 pennies, 2 nickels. 85 pennies, 3 nickels. 80 pennies, 4 nickels. 75 pennies, 5 nickels. 70 pennies, 6 nickels, and so on. As it continues, you reach that mark. Once you get to 0 pennies, how many nickels is it going to be? 20. Then you go to the next one, which would be, 90 pennies and then 85 pennies, 1 nickel, 1 quarter. You know what I mean? It goes, on and on and on. And they found out as they continue to go down the list that there are 293 different ways to make change for $1. Very interesting to see and to hear this. I'm going to do an equation just to finalize that it is true. I believe it though because I did check that part out and I did see it. But very cool. I did not know this whatsoever, and I did not hear until I read this. Larry King stated it in his USA Today column. So always learn something new. So hopefully you enjoyed that. All right. What about your funny law, Ronnie? Before we get into your your stamp of reparation.
Okay, it's not actually a law. It is a public health code.
Okay, there you go.
This is coming from Florida. It's Public Health Code, Title 26-293, passed, I don't believe this, in 1993, that you may not fart in public after 6 p.m.
But the thing is, do you know what they say if you hold it in? They say you should not hold farts in.
That's what they say.
They do. They say you shouldn't hold farts in.
Don't do it after 6.
That's not fair. So are they going to pay for all of those individuals' medical bills? What are you going to? Man, they're going to be going to be a lot of cases of flatulence issues as they go to the emergency room because they can't fart after 6 o'clock p.m.
The problem was with this public health code, I could not believe it. Back in 1993, I guess there was a problem with the quote ozone layer. And they had a problem with environmental smells that were going on. And so they actually passed this law, or a health code, more to speak, that if you're out in public, you could not add to the degradation of the atmosphere or the environment smells.
Well, at least you have nothing to worry about because according to females, they don't fart.
We don't.
Yeah, that's such bogus BS. You know how you stated that study was bogus? Well, what you just stated was as bogus as how you felt about that study. But yeah, the thing is, usually if you're at the dinner table, you're at a restaurant, you excuse yourself if you have to, do that. If you have to pass gas. I can't see that loss. Come on, sticking. I mean,
how do you know someone's doing that? Because you get the silent killers; those are the worst ones, I think.
Right, but there are farts that don't smell.
In their seat?
There are farts that don't smell. I mean, the silent but deadly ones, they stink. Yeah, but there are certain ones that don't stink. That's ridiculous. Come on now. You know what? Yeah.
Just don't do that in Florida.
Yeah, place cuffs on me for breaking wind and see what happens. Come on now. All right, let's get into it. Thank you for that. Interesting. All right, let's get into Ronnie's stamp of reparation. What do you have for us for this 293rd episode, Ronnie?
Well, episode 292, we had a frivolous lawsuit because somebody did not want to be called an inmate.
Yes.
Well, today we have a lawsuit, again by an inmate, only this time this guy is actually in jail in Michigan. He is charged with robbing a bank. But his problem is that the system is banning pornography for the prisoners that are held in Malcolm County Jail in Michigan. His name is Kyle Richards. He actually had the nerve to self-file, mind you, a 10-page lawsuit that claims that prisoners are being subject to a form of psychological warfare by not being able to have these types of materials within the jail system.
I get it. So in other words, they seeing that they're not getting any quote unquote action inside, they would like to relieve themselves, in other words.
Yes, this is the 11th case actually since his arrest that he has filed these frivolous lawsuits. Now, this lawsuit claims that he suffers from chronic syndrome
Okay.
that needs the pornography so he won't suffer from his condition, which considers it to be a daily torture. So he believes that he has this right. So he is suing for $900, I guess, to expand his pornography catalog system before I guess he takes the big one and has to go to the pen to where, he's really not going to need any of those.
It's amazing how these inmates feel they're entitled to all of these amenities and so forth. Yet, remember what you did when you committed the crime to get your rear end placed in prison. Now you feel everything should be handed to you on a silver platter. Well, what's the point of the punishment then? It sickens me to hear about all of this. Seriously, you broke your chances of having certain amenities handed to you. As a matter of fact, there are probably more amenities handed to inmates than they should have handed to them. But you broke your chances when you broke the law, and you were probably given plenty of chances before you even were sent to prison. You were sent to prison because you did what you weren't supposed to do. So
yeah, his suit also includes, when I went back and started digging through his lawsuit, that he has the right, he believes, to video games, to the computer system, to, of course, his pornography, and certain steps into the pornography. So he believes that he has the right to all of this, including his own refrigerator in his cell. So I suppose he's going to claim some kind of a religious compensation that he is going to have to be required to have all this in it, because he's now trying to state that he has switched over since his arrest to a kosher diet. So I guess he's also, maybe if he could switch over his kosher diet within a short period of time, maybe he can also get rid of that condition that he has.
Well, we know why. At least my perception of why we give inmates the amount of freedom that we give them is to increase good behavior. We want to. I know it sounds so crooked saying that. Well, we want to make them happy, but it is kind of true in the sense, because inducing good behavior inside, you hope psychologically will help them if they're going to get out at some point. Now, it's not all that, but and many people feel, as do I, we hand inmates too much as is, but the incentives are policy for long-term benefit to society. So that
the funny thing is,
too.
He doesn't know the law very well, because, see, in Michigan and in certain other states, and when you reach the prison system, once he was sentenced, there's conjugal visits.
Yeah, I remember you talking about something like that. Yes.
Yeah, so he's kind of it's like he doesn't know the law, but yet he wants to represent himself. But I want to sue because I'm not getting my pornography in there, but yet they have conjugal visits.
Yeah.
So he's kind of going backwards.
Interesting. Thank you for your stamp of reparation. As always, Ronnie, we appreciate what you have to say. We got to go to the break on this 293rd episode of Take Two, but what we're going to talk about during this second segment, well, are we actually independent? Really? As individuals, are we independent? Are we pretending to be independent? Don't we depend on quite a bit to live our daily lives? Do we make our clothes? Do we? Honestly. Just think about it. So are we actually independent if we depend on other people to live? It's interesting because there's an article that we're going to base this off of. So we're going to get into that, as well as why do we keep getting the same old ideas when we are apparently being creative, when we're innovating or just drawing, writing, whatever we're doing. Why do we continue to come up with the same ideas? Why do certain movies seem like they're the same thing we've seen over and over again? Why are certain video games that are supposed to be their own game, they look like all of the other ones out there? Where's the creative sense? Well, we're going to talk about another interesting study that has to do with that right there, as well as your blast from the past. So we're going to go into quite a bit, a lot coming up during the second segment on this 293rd episode of the show, so you don't want to go anywhere. Ronnie and I return right after the break, so stay tuned. Hey, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Ronnie and I are back. Yep. For the second segment. What's up, Ronnie? What'd you say over there?
Again?
Yes, we are back for the second segment for this 293rd episode of the show as we continue the countdown to the 300th episode show. 7 away. Pretty amazing as we edge ever so close there. We're glad to have each and every one of you taking the time out of your schedules to join us. We've got so much coming up. So much to talk about, so little time. So why don't we plug the network? I'll give you a little plug to the network, then we'll start. So if all of you tuned in right now would be so kind as the great listeners, would you please visit www.vonthenet.com. That's www.vonthenet.com, the Voices on the Net Network's website, where you, the great listeners, will be able to find more information regarding to the network, yeah. If you're new to the network, it's a great guide, this page. The About page at the top of the website, click that link, and it will give you everything you need to know about this network, and in thorough detail. So if you're new, well, it guides everything you need to know. You could also check out podcasts of, any of the episodes from any of the shows, and they're all available on demand for at your very own convenience. Plenty of content, articles, my blog, really a great website at www.vonthenet.com. All right, so
Every time you say www, it tickles my ear.
I know you say that. It tickles your ear. Interesting. I guess maybe I should create an audio file with me saying www and upload it somewhere, and people will relax to it or something. I don't know. I don't know. Odd, I guess. It's all right. To each their own. Hey, if you like it, great. I'll have to conduct a special audio file just for you with me saying W, Ronnie. I guess. I don't. All right. But yes, we do have quite a bit to talk about on this 293rd episode of the show, so why don't we start things off with the first item on the itinerary here for the second segment. Are we actually independent? And I can tell you, I don't know if I ever thought about this until I read this, because interesting hypotheses that the author came up with here, if you think about it, because they feel possibly that many of us may be pretending to be independent. How many of us are truly independent people? Is being independent simply living on your own, taking care of yourself, or is independent so much more than just that? Because in more ways than less, we depend on quite a bit to live our everyday lives, don't we, Ronnie?
I know. I thought I was independent
Until you read this article, right?
until I read this. It's like, no, one big giant step back again. I thought I was independent, according to this. Not so much.
Yeah. You know, we could be proud to be living on our own. We could be proud to be making our own beds. We could be proud of washing our own clothes. We could be proud of having our own job. We could be proud of this. We could be proud of that. That lures us in the direction of independence. However, do you make the clothing you're wearing? Do you? Or do you purchase it from a secondary location? Right? Did you make the TV you purchased at your local retail store? Did you? What about the computer you're listening to the show on, or the device you're listening to the show on? Did you create it? Did you make it? Were you the developer behind it? Even if you're the developer behind it, did you make the clothes you're wearing while you were developing that product? Interesting to hear that, isn't it? An interesting notion. Yeah, it got me thinking. That's why it's added to the itinerary. Are we actually independent people?
I didn't realize how dependent we are,
Right.
actually, on everything we do. Even if you go to the grocery store and your own food, if you don't, you don't have it in your garden, you don't have the cattle in your backyard, you're going to the store to purchase, all the clothing, the supplies that you have for your home, the food that you have. I mean, you're either that or you're going to the food stands. If you go out and eat, you're not cooking it yourself. Somebody else is cooking it for you.
Right.
The only thing that you're doing is making the money, but yet the money is still even not dependent. You're still dependent upon that because you have to work to get money. You're not actually making the money, as far as going to Fort Knox, breaking in there and getting the money out of there. Everything that you do is dependent on somebody else's actions.
Right. It's as if you want to be truly independent, you can't go to the mall to go buy your clothes. You can't go to your electronics store to buy your computer. You can't go to your audio store to buy your mixer. It's like you have to have the cotton nearby. You have to have the cow in the backyard. You have to have the sewing needles in your drawer. You have to have, you know what I mean. You catch my drift. In order to be truly independent. Because we're dependent on something, at least something out there, to live our lives, which is why this author, and it's a great article on HuffingtonPost.com. We do base our discussions off of quite a few articles on HuffingtonPost.com, HuffPost. We love that website. And the author states the independence myth, if you think about it, that you learn quite a lesson that perhaps the definition or the term should be, rather than independence, freedom, perhaps.
Well, I think our independence, when we were kids, be like, we can not wait to get out there on our own and do this and do that. And then to find out that you've been here on your own this whole time, and then find out that that was just a myth that you believed in, that you thought was real. And you thought if you moved out of your parents' house and you just started to become an adult on your own and you're making your own decisions, even though the parents are still telling you what to do. I didn't realize it was a big myth. I thought I had made all those big accomplishments, and I did not.
Right. I'll tell you, like, you would think, all right, I guess the proper way to say this would be perhaps I'm more independent than you are, or that one's more independent than this one. This one's more independent than that one. How dependent are you on the items that you use every day? How dependent are you on? How dependent are you while you live your life on the things that you use? If you think about it, are you dependent on more things than that person? Is that person dependent on more things while they live their lives than the person B, person C, person D, person E, person F? You know what I mean? So that's, I think, a more proper way of maybe constructing the idealization surrounding this, perhaps.
Because even if you're making your own textiles, you're still dependent upon certain elements in society. Number one, the economy. Depending on what you're going to put out there is dependent upon the economy if you're going to make a return on that. So I don't think that anything that we do everything we do basically is dependent upon somebody else's decision process. So basically their decision has already been made for us. We just have the freedom to, quote, quote, choose what we're going to do as far as being in charge, more or less. Instead of being independent, we're more in charge.
All right. Very interesting article. Very interesting article to that the author goes over here, talking about the term freedom versus the term independence. Whereas if you'd like to think of yourself as somebody that's independent, could you imagine substituting that word for freedom? Because would you substitute the experience of being free for independence or vice versa? You have, as a person, the freedom to live on your own, if you'd like. You have the freedom to make your bed, or you have the freedom to not make your bed. Your room would be quite messy if you didn't make your bed, but that's a personal choice for you. You have the freedom to make that choice. Just as if you have the freedom to make choices that are quite irrational and in many cases quite horrid. You have to live the consequences when you make that decision, though. Remember that. Just as people that commit crimes, well, are they restricted from committing that crime? Nope. They decided to commit the crime. They're going to pay the consequence.
I had a discussion with someone that was in the chat room a couple of nights ago pertaining to this very topic, that they were claiming that you don't have the free will, the freedom of choice. In reality, you do, just because there's rules in place. Law is on a piece of paper. It's not a human being. It's a piece of paper. This is telling you what society will allow you to do,
right,
versus what you're going to choose to do. Now, society is not going to stop you. I mean, if they saw the crime in action, the majority of those in society will try to stop you from committing that crime. But in all actuality, there is no way, you can make a choice if you want to murder somebody. But if you make that choice, you made that of your own free will. You willingly went out there and took the life of somebody else, but you still have a penalty to pay for that choice. So no one's keeping you from making a choice. We're just making sure that the choices that you make are the correct ones.
Right. And this author feels that it would be fallacious to actually compare one word to the other, independent of freedom, in that sense, as we are dependent on many items and services as we live our lives. That, all right, we take the first step. We are moving into our own house. We're more independent. Note how I said more independent, not necessarily independent. So perhaps the proper way, again, is saying we're more independent than independent because of us being dependent on so many other things. Giving credit where credit is due. You bought the clothing from a certain manufacturer. Where did they get the clothing from? Where did the manufacturer get their clothing from? Where did it originate? Well, it originated wherever the creator used, cotton or whatever fabric they used and sewed the clothing together and created it. Would they necessarily, if they were to create their own clothing, be more independent while wearing that clothing as opposed to you purchasing that clothing from a store? Yes, they would be. If they're creating it, right? Am I right?
That's right. I mean, if the one that you're into, such as, you're raising your own sheep, you're doing your own wool, the whole 9 yards, then you'll be more independent than I would, because I'm not touching a sheep.
Right. It just, like, when you think about it, it's quite deep, because I don't think I could tell you, I before I read this, I didn't think of it this way. I'm like, wow, this is interesting to find another route into, the definition of the term independence and our freedom. We talk about Independence Day, our Independence Day here in the United States of America, and a country that's free. Notice how free and independence, same sentence.
Less control,
right,
to an extent.
Right. Note how you just added the word less to control. I added the word more to independent. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Ways.
Right. It's a thought-provoking article. That's
It
what
is.
it is.
Because you think that people say, well, I'm an independent driver. I can go and do what I want. Well,
Right.
and you find out that you're not even an independent driver because it took the concept of somebody building the car, making the car, the oars that are involved, that you're not even independent on that. You're just making the choice of where you want to take the car.
Right.
So I guess I'm back to square almost one.
Yeah. When you're forced, getting back to decision making and so forth, some people are going to be forced, or not necessarily forced. Rescind what I just stated there. Some people are going to have to make a decision in worse cases than others. If you have a gun pointed to your head and the guy with the gun pointing at you states, "Give me your wallet or I'm going to shoot you." At that very moment, you have the choice to make whether you're going to give up your wallet or not or risk being shot. Now, that's a scenario in itself as compared to deciding what you're going to eat for dinner because, well, there's the decision-making process that, in effect, that's similar. What's different is the severity of the moment because
what the outcome is.
Right. You don't want to get shot, obviously, but you don't want to lose your wallet either. But you can get all of those items back in your wallet. You can't get your life back. So now you weigh the options, the consequences, if you were to get shot. What if the bullet misses the crucial part of my brain, or what if the bullet misses the crucial part of my neck, or wherever he shoots me? I can live through this. Yeah. But he's still going to take my wallet because I'm not going to be able to defend myself. I'm going to be injured. So give my wallet up and I'll be safe, or I give him my wallet and he shoots me anyway. So there are decisions that are made in every essence of life.
Even waking up in the morning, you have a choice of, do you want to get out of bed? Or are you going to sleep that extra 15 minutes like I do and hit snooze?
Right. That's the thing. And in many cases, before we went into this, we would say, all right, we have the independence to make that decision if we want it. Well, do we have the freedom to make that choice? I think that sounds a bit better than we have the independence to make that decision. Right. Because talking about independence, whether we're independent on ourselves is a factor in itself because we're dependent on quite a bit.
Yeah, which really brings the Constitution to play because you have the freedom of choice.
Yep.
It does not say that you have the freedom of independence.
Right. No. It's a great article.
So I guess they knew ahead of time.
Perhaps. Like I said, a great article that talks about quite a bit. Also brings up Viktor Frankl, the Austrian neurologist. He was also a psychiatrist. Worked back in the pre-World War II Vienna times, who helped trouble people who were suicidal. And remember, this, I don't think I mentioned this actually, really focusing on Germany and that part of time, when we talk about, concentration camps, for instance, and the hard times that were endured during those times, that people were stripped of their clothing, stripped of their belongings, whipped, they were killed. I mean, these were times, we go back to the Holocaust. Horrifying. That all of these individuals each had a choice, a decision, only to a limit, though, because now they may have been given a choice. Either do this or we're going to kill you. Or in many cases, they didn't even have that choice. No. It was, you're dead no matter what. If you
They gave you a choice of what train you wanted to be on. I mean, that was it.
So there's an example of somebody that has such a limit on the freedom of choice that in the experience they're enduring. Clearly, you don't hear that. That's not nowadays. It's quite different. But you go back to the 1940s, 1950s. Quite different. Quite a different time. And this was in Germany too. We're talking about in another part of the world. Whereas, things are different in different parts of the world. They are. Still to this day, they're different that things are different in parts of the world. Freedom is a different definition if you were to compare the United States to quite a few other places around the world.
Because some countries, places around the world believe that freedom represents chaos.
Right.
So they determined that chaos actually should represent control, stability.
Yeah. So it's just a great article. If you want to check it out, it's on HuffingtonPost.com, titled, "Are You Pretending to Be Independent?" And interesting notion surrounding this, why we went into it. That's why Ronnie and I decided to discuss this, because definitely a thought-provoking article, a thought-provoking topic at that. All right. We're going to move into the next item on the itinerary. That's right, on this 293rd episode of the show. We're going to be talking about why we keep getting the same old ideas. Why? We have so many creative people out there, yet you have these video games that are coming out. But wait, didn't I just play this video game a few years ago? Why is it so similar? Why are so many movies that are created the same darn thing? Where's the creative sense? Where's the creative process, the thinking process? Where is the innovation? Why are so many things comparable to other things? Well, we're going to talk about this. There's an interesting study we're going to be basing this discussion off of that has to do with this here, on why we keep getting the same ideas over and over and over again, and it has to do with mental patterns. You're going to want to stay tuned. It's going to be quite interesting. Also, your blast from the past coming up at the end of the program. So quite a bit of stuff coming up. But before we get into all of that, if all of you would be kind and listen, as Ronnie and I thank our sponsors, as this portion of the 293rd episode of the show is brought to you by none other than Audible.com, and we appreciate Audible's support of the Take Two program, as well as the Voices on the Net network. And listen up, ladies and gentlemen, because Ronnie and I have an awesome deal for each and every one of you, and you don't have to spend a single dime. No. Audible's home to over 85,000 audiobooks and counting, always new audiobooks being added to their collection, their selection. We'll give you one free audiobook and a 14-day, a 2-week free trial to browse the immense selection of audiobooks offered. To take advantage of this brilliant offer, you go to audibletrial.com/take2. That's audibletrial.com/take2 to get your free audiobook and your 14-day free trial. Ronnie and I are both subscribers. We enjoyed immensely. The audiobook experience, the auditory experience, quite different from the visual experience. Rather than picking up a paperback book, reading traditionally word for word, you get to listen to the book you're enjoying rather than reading it word for word. Try it. One free audiobook and a 14-day free trial. You'll be glad you did. As always, we thank Audible for their support of the Take Two program, as well as the Voices on the Net network. That's audibletrial.com/take2. Thank you, Audible, for your support. We appreciate it. All right. So, this right here, why are we getting the same old ideas? Or why are so many people that are creating products, that are developing products, games, services, why are we creating the same old, same old? Is it if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Is that the kind of theory going on here? Or are we just running out of ideas? Very interesting research that goes into this that has to do with mental patterns on why we keep getting the same old ideas, similar to jumbling up words. In other words, you were to say, take a paragraph, and you were to rearrange the first and last letters of those, or in other words, you rearrange the middle portion of it, of the word. So you could jumble up a word. I did this test with you.
Yeah.
And you could read it because
I could read
the
it.
jumbled words, jumbled letters, not words necessarily. Our minds see them as words. We perceive them as words because we see the first and last letters of the words. The letters, in other words. They're not words. They're jumbled letters, but they're jumbled letters of words. So
patterns is what we're seeing.
Exactly. Similar to that right there. They're talking about mental patterns. I want to read a part of this here, and then we're going to go a bit into it. When information enters the mind, it self-organizes into patterns and ruts, much like hot water on butter. Yeah, new information automatically flows into the preformed grooves. Now, after a while, the channels become so deep, it takes only a bit of information to activate an entire channel. Now, this is the pattern recognition and pattern completion process of the brain. Now, even if much of the information is out of the channel, the pattern will be activated. Now, the mind automatically corrects and completes the information to select and activate the pattern. Very interesting that it goes into that there, that we look at patterns that, all right, we go by a specific pattern. One thing worked. Well, there has to be a pattern here. How many times did that, whatever it is you're working on, work? Did it work? If it didn't, well, we try something else. If that works, there's a pattern. It didn't work, it does work. Are they going to try that same thing again? Well, weigh your options. One time it didn't work. The next time it did work. 50-50 chance. Take your choice. There are other items that, well, happen to be more successful than others. There are other things that happen to be more successful than others. Note a pattern in the creative process. So it kind of is that theory of if it ain't broke, don't fix it in a way.
Mm-hmm. I like that theory on how they use the flashlight variations. If you look at a flashlight and someone's telling you, okay, you need to alter this, change this. And I remember them doing this to us when I was in 5th grade. They wanted you to put out an invention that's never been invented before for you to do this. And at the end, you're in 5th grade and you first you got to figure out what an invention is, how they're going out, what has not been created before. So now you got to get your creative, thinking going, getting that out, get the variations out. And that was tough to do to a point until you're mixing combinations together. You're mixing two completely different items that are disassociated. And then you know the pattern of one and you know the pattern of the other. But when you mix them together, it opens up a more realistic avenue of going beyond that original pattern of a thought process.
Right. It is interesting. They bring up thinking patterns as when involving creativity because there are so many things out there that we enjoy on a daily basis, whether you go to a movie, whether you play a video game, whether you read a book, yet they seem so similar, so comparable to, other books or other games or other movies in the same genre as theirs. So many games are similar to the games that they're competing with, yet they're still generating interest. There are different different colors, the different textures. Yet it's all the user interface looks similar. It's a similar type of gameplay. Movies that are being remade rather than movies that are being created. Well, at one point, those movies were created from scratch. So why can't we continue to create movies from scratch? Have we reached a limit where we simply can't come up with anything new? Or, listen, we know this franchise is very successful. Let's remake it using new technology and let's rake in the dough. You know what I mean? Because thinking about it, that plays a major role in, why directors do that. They know they're going to make money off of it, like many of the movies that have been remade out there.
Yeah. But if you've noticed, that's what our industry has done, is gone back in time. The movies that we were used to, the Freddy Kruegers and all that good stuff.
Yes.
And now the movie industry, it's almost like they have run out of ideas. Now they're going back a generation and bringing back the cartoons and putting them into movies. What worked back then, we're going to alter it and make it work in our time. That there really isn't much of a variation, just maybe a different environment for these to take more of a pace on. The same thing can go if you have somebody that's up there giving a speech. Everybody sees the same exact thing. Here's the same thing as far as what's coming from their voice to your ears. But we interpret it so much differently because you can have a different group of people based on what their mindset is, what their variation processes are, and even your environment. Because, when you're growing up, sometimes you're limited at what your thought processes are. You can't think that way. This is not how this is. No, don't color outside the lines. You're given that lack of ability to become a free thinker or a critical thinker. And then when you reach into the adult phase, now they want you to become the critical thinker when those skills probably should have been more tweaked.
Right.
When we were kids.
Yeah. Our minds are should be, in other words, an endless road. Should be, because, we could stimulate our minds by, we can get ideas from certain things, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, whether it's a game, whether it's a book, whether it's an article, whatever. We can get ideas and then base those ideas off of what we're going to be creating, and then come up with a totally unique idea based off of what you just, what you stimulated your mind with. But it seems so many directors, so many writers, so many game developers are not doing that. They're not stimulating their minds. They're not feeding input into their brains and utilizing what they have capable to do that. It happens so many times. It's like, I just paid $13 to go to this movie, and I saw it a year and a half ago. It's like, what's going on here? Or sequels, in other words. How creative were they creating the sequel? Really? So you just wanted to create a sequel because the first one was successful. So did you put any time whatsoever into the sequel, or did you just think about making money because you're taking advantage of the franchise or the first movie success rather than actually putting a decent amount of creative thinking into the second movie sequel?
Yeah, true. Because, you think about the brainstorming process. Maybe they should have more than just writers in the room. You should have people from all different facets of the industry.
Right.
And include that with those from, the people that are actually going to be watching it, your critics. And see what you come up with within that, idea brainstorming portion of it versus just, okay, all these writers are going to get together and now, they're all writers, but they don't have, a separate thought process. Maybe that, the cinematography might have, or the stunt process might have. They might have some ideas and throw it in together, and the writer really like, aha, we have a new on set to go to.
Right. And really, deep down inside, another way to say it is, think about it, is art really running out of ideas? Art, because music, movies, games, books, all art in a way. If you think about it, all comparable to art, or all having to do with art. Music is another thing that you come up with. How many pop songs sound the same? One could argue going back 20, 25 years ago, the music scene was definitely more diverse than it is now. Where's rap? Rap's kind of turned into into pop, hip hop in a way. R&B is more pop, and now you have pop rock. It's now everything seems to be focusing on pop, and then synthesizing and auto tuning, and it seems that everything is the same. Where's the creative thinking gone? And somebody in the chat room brought up a great point, how it's obviously easier to remake something than it is to do it by thinking originally. But perhaps critics wouldn't be so harsh on certain movies or certain songs if you took that extra step and actually maybe composed an original idea that hasn't been thought of before. You have a team. That's what a team is there for. A team of directors, producers, writers. Come up with something. That's your jobs, isn't it? So do it. Do it, please.
Yeah. Get out of that one-way thought process. I mean, let's look at Lady Gaga, Born This Way. It's the exact same as Madonna's was so many years ago. Brought it back to the forefront, in our era.
A lot of people compare Lady Gaga to Madonna, actually. That Lady Gaga is today's Madonna, if you think about it. I mean, that's what they compare her to. It gets you thinking. Again, another thought-provoking article here that goes into this on why our creativity is kind of grinded to a halt rather than as technology enhances. Imagine what we could do with the great technology we have if we did utilize more original ideas by stimulating our brains. How many radio shows? I'll use the radio industry in an example here. How many times do you think I'm writing down things that I want to be unique? I want to try and create original ideas. I want to try and add that unique aspect to each show that I run on this network. I want to be able to utilize. I would rather have original ideas than really, doing something that's already been done a million times over. Is it going to happen? Of course. What does work, is going to work for the most part. So you utilize what you can, but you need to initiate some sort of original idea. You have to. I mean, if you don't, it's going to be very, very comparable, very similar. Then you have to worry about, well, if you're utilizing something that's similar to quite a few other shows out there that aren't working, well, what makes you think your show's going to work? What makes you any different from them, except your personality, of course, but is that going to be enough to push you forward? So, see, the thing is, many radio shows, podcasts, netcasts, they're cerebrally developed. I mean, this is a cerebral format. We focus on topics, we discuss topics, we use our minds rather than our hands. You know what I mean? So, it's how we utilize our minds and create, original things to talk, just to try and, base it off of how we may perceive a study, what we may think of something out there, just in general, whatever we're talking about, that creates that unique aspect. But how many other people are saying the same exact thing? What makes you so different? Your expertise plays a major role in it. What credentials? Why should people trust you? A lot of things play a role in it, but I don't think we should lose that creative edge that we all have the capability to attain. We really do.
Yeah,
it's
kind of underscores that old adage. You have a one-track mind.
That's kind of that's really what that's what it adds up to. One-track minds. While there are multiple tracks en route, you're taking that one track and you're continuing to take that one track as the train continues to progress. Whereas you could switch tracks and really blow people's minds away with an original work of art. And those that do utilize their minds, the capability they have, and create an original work of art, I commend you on that. I really do, because clearly it's a lot more challenging than we would have originally anticipated, because even some of the best directors, some of the best writers, some of the best game developers are creating games, movies, or books that are so similar to others. And, that gets you thinking, really does. All right, we do have to get to the blast from the past on this 293rd episode of Take Two right here. Or 293, did I say two? No, 293rd episode of Take Two. That's right, we're 7 away from the 300th episode show, so we're edging ever so closer. But now it is time to take this time machine into the past. So what do you say, all Ronnie? Right. You, I, and all of the listeners go into the past, a past discussion you and I went into. You want to?
I want to.
All right, folks, here you go. Enjoy. This is your blast from the past. But yeah, Ronnie, there's something I want to bring up here that has to do with tech distractions. Now, distractions are in just about every one of our lives. We all have plenty of products, plenty of devices out there that distract us. And heck, you could even go back before technology was prevalent in our society, and you'll have maybe not as much as they are in our society now, but there were still distractions back 20 years ago. But companies say they're really hurting here. They're really hurting because they're apparently losing millions of dollars per year because of tech distractions, whether people are checking their phones during meetings, they're checking the sports score, or they're maybe excusing themselves, stating they're going to the bathroom, but they're really going to take a phone call. These distractions are costing companies millions of dollars because of the lack of productivity from their employees. Now, call me naive here, Ronnie. Call me naive, but God forbid the CEOs, the managers, or the presenters that are presenting the meetings or talking to their employees, God forbid they take the blame for anything. I understand that. I understand that distractions can limit one's productivity, but maybe you're not interesting to begin with. maybe if you were interesting, maybe if you were engaging, maybe if I wanted to listen to what you had to say, or maybe if I were making a little extra money, I would be more engaged. There are other, I think, ingredients that play a part, and all of this, I think, should be added to the equation. Not only the fact that the employee's the bad guy by simply checking their phone. Yeah, we have these items that are just at our fingertips here. We're going to check them. We're going to use them. And now, even after you leave work, you're still at work. Because at home, you're, well, working still. So if you could try and be as productive as you can via multitasking, I mean working and checking your BlackBerry or checking your email, whatever, at work, well, so be it. Something has to be done to maybe transition how productive an employee is at the in the job environment, in the work environment.
Well, what's funny with this research is that they had the same research that was done at Melbourne University just a few years back that provided a different result. That there was actually 65% of the companies out there wanted their employees to work with the social networking sites, to go be on Twitter, to be on Facebook, to answer emails and so forth, because it provided them with a 9% increase in their productivity because it provided an out. Look how many times you're at work, you're bored, you're waiting for your computer to start up, you have your phone there, different things are going on, and you get that lull time. You need, instead of going outside, taking a break or doing whatever, you're doing it right there. That is a little break in the monotony to start to work over again. I don't see what's wrong with that.
Right. Now, this is here's some numbers for those of you to crunch if you want. The technology that these companies are saying are literally the cause of them losing so much money. Get this. Apparently this study here cost a 1,000 worker company more than $10 million a year. Yeah, $10 million a year they're losing. Now that's a lot of money right there. All right, there you have it. Your blast from the past. Tech distractions costing companies lots of dough. And note how we brought into, it just happened to be a part of that, the creative thinking of somebody speaking. Well, maybe they're boring. Maybe we don't want to listen to you because you have nothing interesting to add. We've heard this before. We've heard that before. So why should we listen? So I'll pop out my phone and I'll interest myself. So you compound that with the fact that there are a lot of people that utilize their devices, in meetings, and everybody has a phone these days. Tech distractions can limit the amount of work employees do.
Well, sometimes I think, depends on what you're doing. Well, maybe that creativity will come into play.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about it, and we went into the factors surrounding it, and it's not out of the ordinary that if somebody's on their phone, they're not necessarily paying attention to what the speaker's saying, and come time to act. Well, how are they going to utilize what the speaker stated if they weren't paying attention? So,
you don't have even for the first 5 minutes. You're done.
Exactly. Very interesting. And remember, you could check out, and that was back on 266, by the way, episode 266 of the show, the opening moments of that show. If you want to check out that show and every other show on the network, go to vonthenet.com. You can check out all of the podcasts, all right? Check them out. All right, we got to go. That's all the time Ronnie and I have for this 293rd episode of the program as we continue our trek to the 300th episode. But we'll be back for the next one before you even have the chance to miss us, to do it all over again for each and every one of you. But until then, we do have to say so long for now. Take care, everybody. Much love. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye.